Question: what to do when grief memories and feelings come up? What to do when grief memories and feelings come up, especially when they're suddenly out of the blue. You're surprised, you're shocked, you're in the middle of working, you're in the middle of doing something, and all of a sudden, there it is. Okay, so this is what I'm going to address tonight. I'll refer to a couple of my other videos too, but this, because of the way I was asked this, I'm going to answer it with the knowledge that I have from experience, as well as also from the experts I've learned from. In a way, a lot of us, because of how we were raised and different things that have happened to us, the way our culture in America specifically handles it, we can subconsciously think our grief is bad or evil or just a problem that needs to just we just need to get rid of as soon as possible. That's not true. So I want to say that in order to handle, you're going to say, well, Julie, you're not giving me exact ways to deal with it. How can I give you all exact ways of dealing with this when every one of us is unique? And when it comes up, it's going to be a unique situation. If you want more help with this in depth, I am a life coach. I offer a free consult to see if it's a fit for you and I to work together. We can get specific, and that's what, of course, I do in life coaching. I get very specific, and I get to know your specific situation and what you're going through, what you're struggling with, and what you want changed. Okay, so I have to go forward with principles here, and I do have a lot of other videos that kind of touch on some of these issues. But first and foremost, if your mindset is right, you're more able to deal with anything in life. If you think something's bad, what you're experiencing, you're going to more so avoid it, or you're going to flip out, or different things like that. So in order to deal with it in a healthy way, or the best way, right, is first and foremost to know that the grief is not bad. It is literally the result of love, and it's a result of a loss of a connection with somebody or something. It can be you're grieving over your last home because you moved. You're suffering and feeling the loss of the connection to that home. You're not in that home anymore. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so that's really important to realize that. And so I'm addressing someone's specific comment. And so I'm not going to say who it was. I'm just going to say what they said initially was how to be in the moment, and not get trapped in grief. So that was what was the comment. And then I asked further to make sure I understood what they meant by that. And they said, when memories pop up during the holidays, or really any time of the year, right? When memories pop up, it can cause sadness or, you to be upset. And we can get stuck there. So that's so that helped me to understand what they meant by, getting stuck. So I like how they asked about how to be in the moment. I think I'd have to talk to the person personally to make sure that's what they meant. But that we're going to talk about that specifically. But okay, again, I want to kind of, perspective here and our mindset and how we're seeing things is really important. So it's not so much that we get stuck in the grief. The better way to look at it is that the grief gets stuck in us. So it's more, instead of saying like how to be in the moment and not get trapped in grief, how to not get stuck or trapped in grief, it's better to say how to help the grief not to get stuck in us, inside of us. Because the grief, to go over that definition, or the really simple definition of grief, is that's what is inside of us that we feel from a loss, whether it's the death of a loved one or a divorce or some kind of a live loss of a relationship, or a move from one home to the next, so on and so forth. So it's not just that, it's more likely that we need to deal with that grief, the feelings, the hurt, the pain, the emotion, the thoughts that's inside of us. We need to let that out and not let it stay trapped in us. So that's really more the point of view. So a lot of this is perspective. A lot of this is the way we think. If we work on the way we think and we learn truth about things instead of what the culture teaches us maybe, or what our family taught us or what we learned, or the way we, then we can shift immediately how we're dealing with things, how we're responding or reacting to things, because now we have a better mental framework and a mindset there. So that's part of what I want to share with that comment from this person saying how to be in the moment and not get trapped in grief. And then, really they were talking about when sadness and feelings or being upset comes up, we can get stuck there. So I'm going to talk about how not to get stuck through the different concepts I'm talking about tonight. All right. So another kind of initial thing is don't be, if we just on our grief journey, because a lot of people call it a grief journey, and it's a good way to put it. It's ever since my daughter died, I've been on this grief journey concerning her and her kids. Okay. That's my grief journey. Okay. So it's a good way to put it because it's not just a one-time thing or a short little trip that we take. Grief is not a little trip we take or a long trip we take. It's a journey that's most likely going to be there for the rest of our lives. And the quicker we assume that and accept that, the better we are. But if we cannot be surprised or shocked or think that we're done with our grief, that is going to position us to be able to deal with it better. So it starts with these things first. And these are things I teach on my channel all the time, Kay Kettles, and so forth. So, never can cover everything at one time in any concept. But if you realize it's with you for life, yes, you're going to get better. Yes, the pain is going to get softer, maybe even go away. But when you realize you're never going to be fully over it, in the sense that at any moment you can have a grief burst. That's one thing, it's called a grief burst. You can have just a moment of thoughts, memories, or feelings, or sensations in your body even. And that can come at any moment for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean you're staying in the pain forever. It doesn't mean you're not working through it and that you're not healing from that loss. It doesn't mean that. But if you're not surprised whenever we're thinking we're done with something or I'm done, that's over with, and then something regards to that happens, what do? Our expectations, we're like, oh, that's not going to happen again. And then we're more shocked, we're more surprised, we're more shaken up. It just adds to what's already going on. But if we go not like we're anticipating bad, but if we're kind of realistic about it, that this could come up again, we're more likely to recognize it and not fight it, and then to know how to deal with it and learn. I know this, I might have another grief burst, even though I am so much more healed, and I am. This is truly me. My daughter died in March of 2020 before the lockdown. It's been 5.5 years. I've healed tremendously. At one point, several years ago, I started feeling joy again. I was able to sign and dance again, which if you know me, I love doing that, because for a while I didn't want anything to do with that. No surprise. So, I can tell you different stages that I've oh, look, I've come further. And so I've come very far. But Sunday morning, 2 days ago, I don't think it was any certain trigger, because basically part of what this person who made the comment is acknowledging is that, and really I would just want to say it, any of our five senses can trigger us, if we just call it a trigger, or kind of bring to mind the loss again, or some of the pain again, and cause us to be sad or angry or feel hurt, any of those things, guilty, anything, any of the emotions. I've done a whole long series on emotions, so check out that series. We talk about all kinds of emotions. So I don't want to repeat that. But any of the five senses, something coming by what we see, what we taste, what we smell, what we hear, of course, and feel. Any of those senses something can come to us that triggers us, okay, or that causes us to have a memory. And that's kind of what they're talking about. Okay, so if we go into this realizing we are going to have more, and on Sunday I did. I don't know, because sometimes we don't realize what's triggering us or why that's coming up. I can't remember. I was getting dressed for church. But I just started to feel emotional and sad. And I've said before in some of my videos, I never went through a total angry stage, but I started to get a little just hurt over all that I've been through since she's died. And there's just so much. And so many people just think I'm strong and all this stuff. And in God, his strength is in me. I will claim that I'm strong in him. But I'm real and I'm still hurting and don't think it's done. And I think that shows a person even more that, you can not think they're arrived, but be encouraged by them because they are being real about what they're feeling and going through. But they're still overcoming and they're still going on and helping others and having a ministry or whatever it is. And that's what I've done. But I still struggle. So that morning I just started to cry and I actually it was the first time, and I know people do this all the time. I was a little upset with Heidi. I was just like, yeah, and her boyfriend. I was like, when you guys did these things, you weren't thinking of your kids. You weren't thinking of your parents. You weren't thinking of all that we were going to go through after you're out of this earth. And I believe fully Heidi's with the Lord, and I'm thankful for that. But that doesn't take away what I've been through since she left and how she left, So anyway, it's just, I had a grief burst and I started to cry and I got very emotional. And then later that day, I had some more of that. And thankfully it didn't linger for a long, long time. A lot of times mine don't or do, we might have the whole day disrupted or days and days. So I just want to say that if we're going into things and realize grief is not bad, and if we go and if we realize our grief journey, yes, we've healed, but don't say, I'm done. I'm all good. It's all done. Just don't say that. It's just like, don't say, I'll never do that. Especially regards to people with their parents, I'll never do that. I'll never do that. No, just don't do that because you'll probably go there and it'll happen because it's like pride in a way. So those are a couple of key principles right off the bat that I want to encourage you all with. And then the first thing I wrote down after that is that we learn to recognize and accept what memories or feelings are coming up, what sensations, what feelings, what thoughts or memories are coming up. And I've talked about this multiple times. I have it on my bookmark. Acceptance is a big principle that I believe God's taught me, and I've learned through all of this, and it applies to many things. But recognizing and accepting, if you fight it, it's not going to be good. So recognize, oh, wow, I'm having some anger. I just smelled something that my mother loved or cooked or something, whatever. I just saw a butter commercial because I always remember that happened with me, with Heidi and her type of butter she bought. And, whatever it is, something, a song is often a trigger to get us emotional, right? Whatever it is, recognize it and say, and realize that, sometimes it is because we're exhausted or tired. That can add to it, but it may just be a memory of something that's coming up. So accept it and recognize it. And that's a really good first start. If it's a grief burst, I have a whole video called Bursting with the Emotion and through the loss of your loved one or during the loss of your loved one. So if you put in grief burst, it should come up. But bursting with emotion, I have a video that I did a couple years ago on that. So definitely, if you don't understand that, I would find that video. All right. And then, so the second thing I wrote down is goes with that first thing. Accept it and recognize it. Don't fight it. Don't suppress it. It must be processed. One of the main things I say repeatedly that every grief expert or specialist says is we have to get the grief out. It has to come out. What's inside must come out in order for us to be healthy, in order for us to heal. There's a lot of ways we can talk about this in order for it not to hurt us, to hurt our relationships, to hurt our physical health, to hurt our mental health, all kinds of things. But bottom line, it must come out. And there's different ways to get it out. And I have lots of videos on different ways to get it out. TWA, as Gary Rose says, talk it out, write it out, art it out. So there's many ways to do that. Crying and wailing is part of it. If that's what's coming up and out of you, release it. It may not be convenient. You may have to kind of stuff it until later that day, but please do let it out. Don't keep it in forever and ongoing. It will not be healthy for you. Trust me. Grief hits our body anyway, but you'll cause yourself a lot more problems if you do not process it. So that's always something I have to say because it's the truth. And then the third thing I wrote down is to give yourself permission and space and time to feel it, to think through it. Give yourself permission, space, and time to feel it, to think through it, to talk about it if you can with somebody right then, if it's possible, to go journal if it's possible for you to do it then, for you to go to the bathroom if you're in a place of work or a store or wherever. Maybe you just go to the bathroom, you're crying, go to the bathroom. Give yourself that time to just go in the stall. You don't want people, necessarily seeing you, whatever. I've done that before when I was crying. Just go in the stall, take some toilet paper, blow your nose, give yourself time to let it out and let it calm down. And then go throw some water on your face, maybe take a walk if you can. There's just, it depends on your situation, but it's giving yourself that permission, space, and time to feel it, if at all possible, even if it's just a little bit of it. And then maybe you have to shelf part of it until later that day or what have you, because, it's just not the right timing. So I always want to address that because we all are going to bring up, but what happens if it's in the middle of this or that? So that's the third thing I wanted to share. It kind of does go with the second one, but these are all really crucial. So then the fourth one. If you do the fourth one, you'll more likely do the first three one and the following two. It's another principle. Be kind and patient with yourself. Be kind and patient with yourself in the midst of that. If you're just like, oh my gosh, I thought I was done with this. Why is this coming up? What's the matter with me? I don't know. That's just what's coming to me right now. If that's where you're at, you're beating yourself up. You're not accepting where you're at and what you're going through, and you're not being kind. And if you think, oh, why am I still crying? I'm still crying. You're not being patient. And some people cry for days and months, it's just all different. But so if you think of that principle, be kind and patient with yourself. It's one of the, I don't have my bookmark in front of me, but it's one of the 10 tips I have on the back of my bookmark for tips of how to handle grief. So, and then with that, you think of some self-care. So again, if you're in the middle of something, you can't deal with it completely. Maybe you shelf, in a sense, that burst, to some degree, but you try to think, what can I do for myself today and how to be kind with the tenderness that I'm feeling, or the heartache I'm feeling, or the anger, or the pain, or whatever it is, or just so miss them. I'm just so lonely without them. And think of what you can do to help that. Okay, self-care. I have several videos on self-care. There's all kinds of ways we can have self-care. Learn what's good for you. If you learn it in the process of when you're calmer and you think through what helps you, you're more likely to think of that when you're in the moment of that sudden burst or that sudden thing triggering you. Okay, so for me, I love the nature. Nature is always a quick go-to for me. And soaking in the presence of God to calming music. That's something a lot of times we have phones, so we can put on a calming song or a song to kind of help us through it. Deep breathing. There's so many different things, okay? But think of something you can do to help yourself. And if you deep breathe in that moment, say you're in the stall or you don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of time to fully go through that grief burst, fully process what you're feeling, stop and just take some deep breaths. Okay, in, count of 4, hold it, count of 4, out 4. That's one way. There's many ways. In through the nose, out through the mouth is a good way to do it. Just do some deep breathing. It will ground you. It will stabilize you. But think of self-care. Be kind and patient with yourself, and think of something you can do. Just looking forward to something that is good for you, that you enjoy, can help stabilize you a little bit in the midst of that, especially if it's traumatic and crazy amount of, pain or that's coming up. I mean, that one time, I always remember that one time. It was last November, and I was given permission to write whatever I needed to about my daughter's story in behalf of her boyfriend's, the sentence that was coming in December. And it released a whole bunch of pain in me because she was honoring me and validating my story and what I'd experienced and what I needed to write down. And it ended up being very crucial in his sentencing. So it was the state going after him, by the way. It wasn't me. We didn't pay any lawyer. But it was crucial in the sentencing, and it brought some, not just justice, some resolution. I don't want to say closure. It's not the perfect word to say, but it did something to help me in my grief journey. But I immediately started feeling this pain just erupting, and I was like, my mind's going, what in the world is going on? And I had to process it, and I did give myself time to do that in the midst of what I was doing. Thankfully, I was in this room, actually right here in this chair, and I was able to do that, and it was very strong, and it was very surprising, So, so that is a fourth principle I want to say, is that being kind to yourself in the midst of that. Don't beat yourself up. Don't go into your mind saying, why am I experiencing this? Why? Because the whys just add on to it and stifle it or make it worse, So just try to not be in your head too much about it. Instead, get in tune with your heart and process it.